Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. We're going to talk about Gary Gygax, and we're going to talk about Harry Seldon. Who the heck is Harry Seldon? Well, Harry Seldon is a character in the Foundation trilogy, which was written by Isaac Asimov. I believe he wrote them in the 50s or maybe the 60s. 50s. I think Isaac Asimov pretty early on. I read the Foundation trilogy, and I'll tell you, I was probably in my 20s when I read it, and I think it went over my head. I think I just didn't really understand everything that was there. That's okay. We should stretch ourselves. We don't, when we deal with complex things in art, in politics, in religion, in culture, sometimes we have to work ourselves up to the point where we fully understand what's in front of us. So Harry Seldon is there. So they're in the Foundation trilogy books, but that's not the important thing. Recently, on Apple TV, I've been watching Foundation, the television show, which has done a tremendous job of allow me to reintroduce myself, reintroduce Foundation to me and let me look at it again. And so let's talk about Gary Gygax, and then we'll talk about him in context to Harry Seldon. So Gary Gygax is an incredibly important American. He's this is not a joke. There is a growing pile of academic historical books written about his life, his philosophy, his meaning, his accomplishments. Who was Gary Gygax? What did he actually accomplish? What is the actual record on Gary Gygax? He is an incredibly complicated American, and I think we're going to be unpacking probably for a quarter of a millennium what he actually did, because I don't think most people have any clue of it. Most people think he was a game designer, right? I think that's wrong. I think he was far more than a game designer, and the reason why is go find yourself an academic. Point me to a single academic historical record of the guy who created Chutes and Ladders. It's a game. It's meaningless. It's nothing. That person is not remembered because people don't care about games being created. What they care about is something that moves politics, culture, and religion. And that's what Gary Gygax did. He injected himself in the middle of the politics, the culture, and the religion of America, right into the center of it. And he is still there now. And Gary Gygax is still doing more to move the politics, religion, and culture of Dungeons & Dragons dead. Gary Gygax is doing more to impact, change, and direct American politics, American religion, and American culture than most people will ever do alive, right? What he did during his life is... We might understand it when I think there's about 10 academic historical record books of what happened in Gary's life. When there are 100, I think we'll probably understand the majority of what he actually accomplished, right? So we have this man and his life, his philosophies, his achievements, everything about him is so outrageously complicated, so freighted, right? That it's hard to understand him. Right? And I will tell you right now, I've dedicated a huge portion of my life to understanding Gary Gygax, right? And I think I'm ahead of everybody. I think I understand Gary Gygax better than anybody on this planet. I really do. And the reason now, we're like, well, why wouldn't his kids under? Well, there's a lot. Objectivity is one thing. I pursued this from a perspective of objectivity, where his family really doesn't understand him in an objective manner. A lot of people are rooted on this idea that he was a game designer. I don't think he was a game designer at all. And that allows them to misunderstand what he actually did, who he was, what his value is, all that, right? So there's a lot going on. It's a huge, movement forward, and it's complicated, right? But Harry Seldon is the perfect way to understand Gary Gygax, in my humble opinion. So, in Foundation Season 1, in the Apple TV show, we see Harry Seldon, and he's on a ship. He's on a spaceship, and he's headed toward Terminus, right? And when he gets there, he says, hey, actually, they're on journey, and he goes and he talks to the laundry people, and he says, 100 years from now, because 100 years from now, he says, he tells them, you're going to be memorialized 100 years, maybe 1,000 years from now. And he says, listen, he says, because you chose to follow someone whose theorem of the future was so abstract, it may have has been a prayer. He says to him, you pinned yourself to an eccentric himself. He said, you pinned yourself to an eccentric whose theorem was central to the fate of the galaxy. And the theorem was so abstract that it might as well have been a prayer, right? And what Harry Seldon was saying is, what I have done, which is not religious and not supernatural, is so profound that it will appear supernatural and it will appear almost sacred to others, right? And so Harry Seldon is a look at when a man does something so dramatic and so profound that it won't truly be understood for 5 centuries. That is the model to understand Gary Gygax. What he has accomplished is so profound. The ramifications are so deep for America, where he created Dungeons and Dragons, that it can't even be discussed without deep historical knowledge of Gary Gygax, and without leaving nostalgia and agenda and prejudice behind, right? Harry Seldon was saying, what I've done is so profound, you will be recognized, you will be memorialized as followers, right? And I think he's right. I think that's exactly what's happening with Gary Gygax. I think Gary Gygax right now has followers. You think I'm wrong? Go to GaryCon, right? You think I'm wrong? Look at the amazing innovative work that's happening right now on the Dungeons & Dragons design team that just shouts Gary Gygax's name with every new book, right? It's incredible. It is really incredible. And I really think to really understand what Gary did, we need to understand that we are looking at 5 centuries before everything he did really fully unfolds. And that men who do non-supernatural activities, they can hit with such impact and such profundity that it brings followers, right? And understanding this is going to be complicated and challenging, right? I'm on that journey, and I encourage you to get on it too. All that's my humble opinion. I'd love to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing. Have a wonderful millennium.